You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
The southern highlands of Jalisco have become known for delicious tequila. But back in 1937, before anyone was paying attention to the delicious agaves growing in this community, Indalecio Núñez Muro planted his flag here and began making tequila. His descendants are still making it here today under their family-owned brand, Tequila El Viejito, under the watchful eye and exceptional palate of Maestra Tequilera Karina Rojo. Tequila El Viejito both preserves the traditions of tequila making in Jalisco's southern highlands and also preserves the environment. In addition to earning state certification as a green enterprise, Tequila El Viejito has initiated a program in which they're beginning to germinate their agave from seed, an endeavor meant to preserve genetic diversity of the key ingredient to tequila. So grab a bottle of the original tequila from Jalisco's southern highlands. Grab a bottle of Tequila El Viejito today.
Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip.
I'm Lou Bank.
And I'm Shad Kavecko from Las Almas Rotas.
And this is Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed, award-winning podcast that helps great ex-bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. Shad, I got an email. Do you get emails from Magema Latte?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I get them once a month, it seems. And in the latest e-blast they sent to me, there was something that made my spidey sense tingle. They wrote, and by they I mean Dalton, they wrote, we've been talking, and by we he means Dalton, we've been talking to national importers, to other brand owners, to bar owners, to legendary mezcaleros considering emigrating to the U.S., all indicating the only growth and movement in the category is in more industrial cocktail mezcals. It seems the demand for sipping neat, artisanal spirits has really topped out.
Yeah. Looking at the sales numbers from last year, it seems that mezcal has kind of fallen off across the board. Now, I'm kind of in my own little bubble, my own little corner of the world.
Wow. Okay. I love this. This is not at all the direction I thought we were going to go. Please hit me. Tell me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I'm in my own little bubble. We do what we do at Las Almas Rotas. Even though we're serving cocktails, we're serving it with artisanal, really good spirits. That's part of our program. That's something that we demanded to do from day one. So I don't, Dalton probably has a more 30,000 foot view of things than I do across the board there. So I just see what's kind of happening at Las Almas Rotas, and also, I hear Chisme, as everybody does, and stuff like that. Now, with a lot of brands that I guess you could say are industrial mezcal, or I don't know what the gray area is between artisanal and industrial, if you can shoehorn yourself in, or in most people's cocktail programs. Absolutely. So, and they're going to continue seeing growth because they have the distribution routes throughout the country.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Like, the whole reason I wanted to have this conversation with you, Shad, is because, you run what I consider to be one of the best mezcalerias in the United States of America.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And you and I had a conversation a couple of years back when I was leading a tasting at your fine mezcaleria. And you were telling me that the second best-selling item on your menu, that the first, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first best-selling item on your menu was ranch water. Yes?
It's actually margaritas.
Oh, okay. And the second best, this might be wishful thinking then, and the second best-selling item was your flights.
Yeah.
Wait. Yes.
So I lied to you.
Did you lie to me, or did things change?
Things changed, actually. I didn't lie to you. I used information that I had from several years ago when you first stopped by Las Almas Rotas. I don't know if you remember that, but it was before the pandemic.
No, my life didn't exist before the pandemic.
Yeah, well, my life doesn't exist after it. But you had stopped by, and at that time, one of our curated flights was actually within the top 5 spots, sometimes at number 2, in the highest selling alcoholic beverages category.
Goodness. Okay, so my hope was that this was going to be an episode about this. Wow. Okay, I don't know where we're going to go now. So my hope was this would be an episode, Shad, about how bars should reflect your program of serving flights as a way to introduce people who are drinking mezcal and tequila, primarily in cocktails, introducing them to the concept of how to drink it neat. But
I still think they should do that. Just depending on where they fall in sales, it's the fact of the matter is we're still selling more than we were then. So the volume has gone up.
Hang on a second. Okay, so let me make sure I understand this. You're not saying that it's stalled, right?
No.
You're saying that everything's growing, but the rate at which cocktail mezcals are growing is greater than the rate at which neat spirits are growing.
Yes. Well, no, I wouldn't even say neat spirits because our, quote unquote, mezcal and tequila are, as far as a neat pour, they're way up there in the top 5 or 10 consistently. So people are drinking it neat, whether it's in a flight or just a single pour.
Oh, okay. Well, then this is the episode I wanted to record.
Yeah, we use badass spirits, so that was again part of our requirement was that they would be able to be drank neat instead of just hidden under sugar and citrus.
Interesting. Okay, so a customer comes in, you've never seen them before. They're probably more likely to order a cocktail, yes?
Probably, yes.
Do you do anything besides have in your menu, here are the flights you can have? Do you do anything besides it to be proactive about trying to get them to drink the
we educate our staff, and we tell people if they're new in, if they're not very familiar, or even if they are very familiar with Mexican spirits, we always try to steer them towards a flight. So if I'm talking to a customer, I'm going to tell them what this is our flight menu. I'm not a cocktail guy, I'm just not. I like drinking neat spirits, and we have great cocktails. Don't get me wrong, but sure. I'm just not a cocktail guy. So, my priority is always to, gently tell people that these flights are badass and this is why, but in the end, it's their decision, and there's nothing wrong with them drinking our cocktails because they're made with great spirits. The problem is how many programs don't make their cocktails with great spirits, and it's just the sheer economics of it.
Sure,
we're just dumb.
Okay, so let's talk then very specifically about the flights that you offer, right? My hope is, since this is a critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits in rural Mexico, that we can give them some direction. We can offer a direction for if a bar is experiencing this growth in cocktail mezcal and isn't seeing it in the neat spirits, that maybe this is an avenue they can go down. So with that in mind, what kind of flights do you offer?
Well, we have our set flights, our curated flight program, but we also pour anything on our back bar in a flight pour. So this is great for people that may want to come in and try a certain line that just came out before committing to a bottle. I'm sure, as a lot of bottles are topping out, over $100 now. Yeah. So, this is a way that somebody can come in, try a little bit of several different spirits, not get hammered. And because, we're mostly dealing with super high proof stuff here, and also not, spend a ton on it.
But do you have like a specific flights always on the menu, or do you
Yes.
rotate them through? So do you know off the top of your head some of those specific flights?
Sure. So I will start with our best-selling flight, which is our Maguey species flight. So this is a flight of five half-ounce pours made from 5 different species of agave. We try to vary the regions as much as we can. So this is a great introductory flight for people that don't have a lot of experience in mezcal, and it tries to get them out of the mindset of, tequila smoky cousin. Like let's just see what the range of flavor profiles from this clear spirit can have, just with these 5 that are in front of you now. And then take a look at our back bar, and you're going to see 300 plus other bottles, and it's like, it's almost endless.
Nice. And what else you got?
So we got, we have single species flight, like we have a Karwinski flight, we have a Sotol flight, we have a regional distillate flight, which I think is pretty interesting, which has, Mezcal, Charanda, Sotol, Raicilla, and Bacanora on it. We have Reposado and Añejo flights. These are strictly tequila flights that, it's kind of has age statements on them. And I mean, people are really into barrel aged stuff. And, I primarily drink my spirits, Hoven. But, a lot of people like, something that's touched by a barrel, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we have those. We also have a uncertified spirits flight, which is probably the most expensive flight we have. We had a premium flight before, but we're like, we're a very egalitarian place. Like we don't, I don't want to have like, the aggrandized bottles on the back bar that are just, for the dude with the big swinging bleep to like throw his money out. So I was like, well, let's do an uncertified flight, and we can kind of explore that with people, and that's actually sells very well. So they all kind of do pretty well. I'm trying to think of we have one of the really good flights. We also do monthly flights. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of tasked our staff with coming up with these monthly flights, and they basically have to tie something together, whether it's a flight of 3 or a flight of 5, and make it make sense. And that's really the only guidelines I kind of give them. And then they got to research behind the spirits as well. So they're not just going to sit up there. They'll present this to all the other staff, and they're not just going to sit up there and say, I like, this species, so I chose these 3. It's like, let's make it a little more interesting. Let's go into fermentation. Let's go into, water sources. Like, let's make it weird, and I used to do all these flights, but one of them I did was a tequilana flight, because one of the most common questions we get from people at Almost Wrote This is, what's the difference between mezcal and tequila? And I'm like, well, we can tell you, but why don't you taste the difference? Let's taste the same species of agave. Let's have, Valles tequila and, Highland tequila, Los Altos tequila, and then let's have some mezcal producers, right? And also Siembra Ancestral was on that flight for a long time. That was a true, Vino Mezcal de Tequila. So it's really unlike anything else on the back bar that we have. That's a great way that people can taste through it by the processes.
Oh, man.
The hand of the maker.
That is exactly what I wanted to hear. That's beautiful. Thank you. So
Yeah.
You're saying you'll do flights at either 3 or 5.
Yep.
Just an aside, and then we'll get back to the actual conversation. I love that it's 3 or 5. There's no 4, right? It's got to be an odd number.
Yeah, it's just the size of our flight boards. I mean, I say that, but we have done flights of 4 before. It just, rarely do we do a flight of 4. That's usually when somebody comes in and, is doing a presentation or something like that. If they only have 4 expressions available, then we're going to do a flight of 4. Now, we do have we also made up mobile flight boards. We have a trailer. We have a converted horse trailer that we use. It's our mobile mezcaleria. And
Of
we
course you
wanted
do.
it. And it has full draft cocktail service. It has, draft beer service, but we wanted to do flights on it. So our partner, Taylor, he kind of designed the box. And my wife, Lee, she did all the graphics on it. So it's a beautiful
And
little.
her graphics, I'm just gonna, another side. Like, I think Lee's graphics are amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, she's very talented, and she makes us look much more professional than we are. And it's educational too, because on the bottom of the box we have the denominations of origin on there too. So it's like something somebody could actually take with them. That's a little bit educational and very convenient.
Oh, that's so cool.
And
So
during the pandemic, when we were doing our virtual tastings, this is giving me flashbacks, by the way, right now.
being on Zoom with me.
Yeah, just being on Zoom. I thought this would never happen again, as we know from a few minutes ago. We were sending those out. We were actually mailing out flights all across the country so people could join us on these Zoom calls.
Man, that was like, when you did that, it was such an epiphany. And I feel like that really, it changed the pandemic from lonely to, hey, let's have a party together. I thought that was like, I don't know if you invented it or you're just the first time I saw it, but that to me was just fantastic.
Yeah, it was just something we came up with, and
God bless you.
We didn't hear it from any. I'm not going to say we invented it. I have no idea. I'm sure other people were doing things, but I had actually had one of our a brand owner reach out to me, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to jump on Zoom? This is actually how it happened, and we can take through some expressions and have a bunch of people join us." So then we figured out a way to kind of pack all this stuff up and sub legally send them out and have everybody join in. And one thing that I did get from the pandemic was, other than losing shit tons of money, was this thankfulness about how much this program meant to so many people that dedicated their time, sometimes sending us bottles for free and sat down with us and, top people in the Mexican spirits category. And that really meant a lot to me, that they would, dedicate this time. And they were fun, they were freewheeling. Sometimes we got totally off subject, which I'm not a tasting guy. Like, I'm not a tasting notes guy. We had Tomas Estes on, before he unfortunately passed away. And that was probably one of the funnest ones we did, because he just went off the goddamn rails and started talking about scoring cocaine for David Crosby from, Afghani pirates. And, and he was the only one that called me the day before, and he was like, "Well, what expressions do you have? What year Ocho do you have that you want to go through?" And I was like, "Thomas, I don't give a shit. Like, it's not even about that. Let's just drink that, and I want to hear about your story. I want to hear about Cafe Pacifico and." And then Phil Bailey jumped on, his old cohort from Australia, and we surprised him with having Phil come on. So that was a great one. And of course, David Suro was a great one too, because that lasted like 4 hours before any of us even knew that. But anyway, sorry, not to make a long story long, but that was a highlight. And it also allowed us to, keep educating people.
Yeah.
There's no better way to educate people than when you're drinking, right?
Yeah. Well, that, and, I think it presented this unique opportunity where everybody was hungry for connection in a way that we didn't realize, right? Like, we breathe oxygen every day and you don't recognize you don't have it until you're choking to death.
Well, and what is Mezcal if not about connection, if not about community, and if not about, conviviality. Like that's what makes it so special to me.
Yeah. So just to circle back real quickly to the flights, one last fact I want to nail down is when you look at the pricing of your cocktails, do you try to reflect something similar with flights, or is there any correlation between pricing for the two?
Not really. And the flights are typically more expensive than cocktails, but you end up getting more. A flight of 5, you're getting 3 ounces of spirit. So I think most of our cocktails, it's about 1.5 ounces is a standard pour for those. So you're getting more, even though you're not getting a bunch of sugar and lime and bullshit. You're getting the spirit at its essence.
Which is not to say that you've got bullshit as an ingredient in any cocktail, correct?
Not yet, no.
Okay.
Hopefully never. But, and I mean, we use good ingredients. That's the other thing.
Yeah,
we use fresh squeezed citrus, even in our frozen, which again is stupid, but we do it. We use a great orange liqueur. We use Combier, and, there's, we have a margarita, and some people throw shade on that because it's such a, Americanized thing. There are some purists, and I know Palomas, but like margarita is also the best bridge we can have to everybody. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the connoisseurs are the easy ones, how do we inspire, have this bridge, something of familiarity to people. And there's nothing wrong with it because we make it with good stuff. So many people phone in that. And now I'm totally ruined on margaritas because I can only drink them at my bar.
As though you would want to go anywhere else. When I'm in Dallas, it's the only place I want to drink.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
So, can you put a fine... Sorry, I'm going to jump back to the pricing thing, though. Can you put a fine point on that for me? Do you have like a range of your cocktails cost from X to Y and your flights cost from Y to Z?
Cocktails now are mainly ranging from, let's say, $12 to $15.
Okay.
Our flights start at, I believe, now around 18. Most of them are in the 20s, like 24, 25 for a flight of 5, which I think is not a bad price. The more expensive ones are more expensive, but that is one of the considerations on what goes on our flight. We have several considerations, like what is the best expression of what we're trying to accomplish with this flight. That's foremost, Another one is price point, because these are pretty high price point spirits just by their nature. And then the third is availability. Like, I would love to put a lot more stuff on our flights, but it's kind of a joke with us now because every time I put something on a flight, then it suddenly goes out of stock. And it's like, it happens so frequently, even with stuff that's like we get regularly. But, in Mezcal with, so many at such a small batch sizes, we have to be cognizant of keeping that flight full. Because, we print out flight cards and stuff, and, it can be a pain in the ass to like, jump around from different spirits on that. But we're constantly tinkering with them as well.
Cool.
So,
well, I think that's all I have, though. I just had a thought as you were you made a reference to, what was it, a sold out flight or full flight? Anyway, it made me think like Dallas tends to be a stopover point for a lot of people flying down to Oaxaca. I'm wondering if you have like a flight to go that people can take on their flight as they stop in for the stopover flights. The flight, you see what I'm saying? I wonder if there's a marketing connection you could make there.
Right? Yeah. We'll call it the layover. I mean, they can take. Well, yeah, I shouldn't say that.
I know where you're going with that, and I've done it.
we do get a lot of people that do come in that, both in the industry and also just people that have heard of us and they're fans from other places and want to have the experience. I personally picked people up from the airport and, driven them to our place and driven them back. Dallas, people like to talk shit about DFW Airport, but, we're really lucky to have it. It's a major international airport and it goes to many, many places in Mexico. So, we can get direct flights to Oaxaca, to Durango, like Michoacan, like so many places that you have to have layovers for. So, yeah, to your point, we do get a lot of traffic for that.
How far is your place from the airport?
About 45 minutes. 45
minutes, so an hour and a half round trip. And you got like a 3-4 hour layover. That sounds ideal.
Yeah, it's not bad, because it's all freeway pretty much. Yeah. So it's like, we've literally had people, just plan their layovers to do that, Nice. So, and well, return them happy.
Nice. Well, Shad, unless you've got something else to add, I think that actually covers everything I wanted to cover.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. If like I said, we are selling more volume of flights than we ever have. We're selling more cocktails. That's all doing well. Nothing wrong with cocktails if they're made with good ingredients. I think that's the most prescient point.
The important piece.
As far as bar programs go, because so many people, even if they have great spirits on their back bar, and I get it. Like, I know how difficult it is to make money in this business. Believe me, I've not made any.
Well, and if you did, you just spend it all on like antique saddles that you find in Durango, right?
Yeah, or traveling or whatever. But that is the true payoff. I'll just say this for me, the true payoff of Almost Wrote This has been the experiences I've gotten to have, and mainly the people I've gotten to meet, both customers of ours and people in the industry, and the wonderful people in the communities that I've gotten to visit throughout Mexico. Like, that to me is by far and away the biggest payoff that I could get from this whole thing.
Oh, that's lovely. And I'm going to try to make a connection here, and I hope it works. And so it feels to me like maybe that's also one of the motivators you have in getting people to drink these spirits neat, because it tells better the story of the people that you meet in these communities than a cocktail can.
For sure. You're having it in its most essential form. And you're tasting a song that's been passed down from generation to generation. I don't want to get all poetic about it, but like literally, like, this is something you're tasting. You're drinking a culture, and that was when I had my first artisanal mezcal, because I tried mezcal like years ago and it was like some horrible industrial shape. But when I tried my first mezcal, that's what I said. I said, this is like drinking a culture, because of the depth and complexity of it. Brought me back to my travels in Mexico when I was buying and selling Mexican antiques and folk art. And, as the sheer variety of cultures and the depth of it, it's just, it's just mind blowing. We in America, of course, we have our own prejudices and or just, impressions of what Mexican culture is, but until you get into the interior of it, I don't think you can know it. And I'll say this, and I don't mean to be controversial about it, but I also don't think you can know mezcal until you've experienced it in its cultural context. I think that you need to travel down there to these communities and really drink it with the people there to truly understand it, because it's so much more than what's in a glass. It's so much more than a commodity.
No, that's really beautiful. I wouldn't claim to understand it, right? But what I can say is that for my part, like what you're describing for me, I put through my own lens of experience and when I am drinking these spirits that I have received directly from the families who make them, and I've had the experience of sitting down and drinking it with them in their homes, in the places where they make it, the Venata, the Palenque, whatever they happen to call it. It brings me back to a place, and it brings me back to a warmth and a hospitality in much the same way that, I wanted to connect with you on this very issue. Because I had that same experience with you and with your flights and and talking through the business. There's this, to go back to the whole pandemic thing, right? This whole connection that we long for.
Yeah.
And so many of my connectivity points begin and end with agave.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Me too, especially after the last 7 years of owning Almas Rotas. It's kind of an all-consuming thing. And, I think at its best, Mezcal is very much transportative. I think it can, to bring you to that other land, to, that's what it did for me at first. I also think it's very experiential. Everybody asks me what my favorite one is, and it's like I always say the one I'm sharing with my friends, and that's not bullshit. I mean, it is kind of bullshit. No, no, it's not bullshit. It's true. Like, I don't have a favorite. I've drank mezcals, overlooking beautiful vistas in Michoacan. And, that to me was my favorite mezcal or agave spirit that, that I could have possibly thought of having at that time. But again, it's so much more than what's in the glass. It's those experiences, it's hospitality. Again, it's a culture. We're drinking a culture, and it should be fun too, not to plug an upcoming podcast or one that probably people have listened to already, but, I always say the soul of mezcal is celebration. That's why we opened a cantina. The last thing I wanted to do was open up a white tablecloth tasting room that's only accessible to rich people. I wanted to have a range of spirits that everybody, no matter what your socioeconomic background was, could come in and have some kind of an experience, and hopefully it would transport them to either experiences they had before or, what they could imagine those would be. But we want people to have fun. We want people to appreciate what they're drinking, for sure. But also, I think you do a disservice to the spirit when you take out, the sola celebration.
Oh, you know what? That to me is the perfect point to wrap on. I think that that culminates everything, Shad. Or maybe not. So, just as I was putting together the web page for this episode, I was reaching out to my friend Dave Tita over at Barcoa in Phoenix, because he's got all of these beautiful flights as well at his restaurant, and one of them happens to be called the Agave Road Trip. So I was going to add those flights to the web page, and I asked Dave if he could send me those flights, and he sent me the whole menu, and I started reading through it, and I found this really fascinating thing that Barcoa is offering as yet another way to get people interested in drinking these spirits neat. So I asked him to send that voice memo in. So we're going to run that, and then, Roy, then you can move on to the music. Thanks, road trippers.
So at Barcoa, we want to help guests get comfortable with drinking agave spirits neat. And I know cocktails are a great way to get people into mezcal, but how else can you taste the difference between some of these expressions? And sitting down with a full straight pour might seem a little intimidating. So we wanted to gamify things a little bit, and we came up with this thing called the mind-blowing upgrade. It's only $3, and you can have your shot or pour split into 3 equal parts in 3 different drinking vessels: a clay copita, a traditional jicara, and a glass veladora. You wouldn't believe how the drinking vessel changes the flavor profile of the spirit you're drinking. And so now a guest hasn't really committed to that one full pour, and they can not only talk about the agave that they're drinking, but how the flavor changes based on the vessel they're drinking out of. It's super fun. It's also super annoying because it makes you realize that this agave discovery road trip, if you will, that we're all on, it's never going to end.
You've been listening to Agave Road Trip, the critically acclaimed award-winning podcast that helps Gringex bartenders better understand agave spirits, and rural Mexico. We're blessed with sound engineering by Roy Sierra and a theme song performed by Gabriel Oliveira and Marco Ricos. Sign up to become a road tripper and listen to more episodes at agaveroadtrip.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, please let us know. And if you hated it, well, I'm sure you'll let us know that too. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram at Agave Road Trip. Agave Road Trip is a production of 10 Angry Pit Bulls, Inc. Agave Road Trip is powered by Simplecast. Thank you for listening to Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. To subscribe to the Heritage Radio newsletter, enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with Heritage Radio Network on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find Heritage Radio Network at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization using the power of educational storytelling about food to build a more equitable, resilient food system. Heritage Radio Network couldn't do that without support from listeners like you. Become a part of the world's most innovative community today. Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the Heritage Radio Network family by becoming a member. To become a member of the Heritage Radio Network, click on the beating heart of our homepage. Heritage Radio Network can become addictive. Programming you hear on Heritage Radio Network might lead you to eat, drink, and listen to more programming on Heritage Radio Network. If you drink, please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly, drive responsibly, eat responsibly too, and listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly. To listen to Heritage Radio Network responsibly, wear protective earbuds. While wearing protective earbuds, do not drive, do not walk either. Sit in a comfortable chair. If that comfortable chair has a hard seat, please remember to stretch every 30 minutes. If you stretch every 30 minutes, please stay within your defined stressing capacity. And consult a doctor who specializes in stretching. If you don't have a doctor, maybe Dr. Ryan Acock, the Cocktail MD, can help you out. Thanks for listening. Agave Road Trip out.